Grab your Bible and a Diet Mountain Dew because it's time for the Brother Byron podcast. Listen in as Brother Byron brings you thought-provoking insights from his 30-plus years in the ministry. Now here's Brother Byron.
Hello, friends. It's Brother Byron back with another Brother Byron podcast. And it is Thursday, November the 27th, 2025. It's Thanksgiving Day. And it is, what time is it? It is almost 3 o'clock in the evening. And we have not had our Thanksgiving meal yet. My oldest daughter and her husband had to work today. And they don't get off of work till after 3. And so we're going to have our Thanksgiving meal at 5 p.m. tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Mary's been in the kitchen all day. She was in the kitchen all day yesterday as well, preparing dishes, everything your heart can imagine. She's probably made it. It smells so good in there. I can smell all the spices and the herbs and the meats and everything cooking. But the rest of my family's in the living room. They've been playing games all day, except of course my oldest daughter and her husband. They're not here yet. So, but they've been playing games. Something I don't have any idea about the game they're playing. It's one of those role games that I don't understand those. You got to keep up with a lot of stuff. I like simple games, so that's not mine. My favorite games are trivia games, and I usually always win those. I guess I got a lot of trivia up here in this head, but anyway, what I had in my mind today is you may have heard on the news here this week about the Campbell soup executive that was fired because of something that he was recorded saying. Now, I cannot play you the video because the man has a filthy, disgusting mouth on him, and so he curses and rants and raves, and something I am not going to air here. You can look it up if you want to. Just look up Campbell soup executive fired, and you'll find it. But he was fired because he was recorded saying things about Campbell soup and how it was highly processed food for poor people. So Campbell soup is highly processed food for poor people. He said he wouldn't touch it or eat it. And he mentioned something about the meat being 3D generated or something along those lines. And everybody's went bananas over him saying that. Some people act like they're offended because he said that soup was for poor people. Well, I look at it in a different way. It spoke differently to me. It pulled up one of my earliest childhood memories back when I was 5 years old. It was around 1970. And this was long before I understood anything about money or stress or how families stay afloat. I didn't have any experience with that. I was just a kid and just knew that, we lived day by day. But like I said, when I was about 5 years old, my dad at that time was studying and attending the University of Tennessee, where he was working on getting his degree in education. He did get his degree finally and went on to teach in Knox County schools. He was a public school teacher for 30 years before he retired. And then he taught at a Christian school for a while. And then he retired to go fishing all the time until he passed away from cancer. But it was back in 1970. Dad was at University of Tennessee working toward his degree. My mother was working second shift at Levi's. There was a huge Levi's plant here in Knoxville where a lot of people were employed. We had two big employers, really. Levi's was one. The Standard Knitting Mill was the other, where they made T-shirts and underwear and socks. And my dad actually worked there earlier, before he went back to college, or went to college to get his degree. He worked at the Standard Knitting Mill. But Mother was working at Levi's at the time. She was the only income that we had coming in. and it wasn't a lot of money. I believe she sewed zippers into pants was her job, and she worked, on second shift, and Dad would have to put us all in the car, and we'd go pick her up at night after she got off on her shift, and then come back home. But that's what was going on at the time, and so we didn't have much money at all, and we were living on, from Mom's paycheck, from paycheck to paycheck. That went to bills, Dad's education, gas for the car, and whatever was left was groceries. And that was for at that time it was me, my older sister Pam. Jennifer was not born yet, so she wasn't there. Mom and Dad and me and Pam. And so we had to buy groceries with any money that was left. And my parents were too proud to ask anyone for help. They never would do that at all. They would go without food before they would ever ask for help. So we would live a lot of times on what Dad would bring in when he would go hunting. We had a large woods behind our house, and Dad would go out there to get us something to eat. And so there was many a day we ate squirrel, we ate rabbit, whatever Dad could get, that's what we ate. And he did also raise rabbits, and we would raise rabbits, and then we would kill them and eat them, and chickens as well. We raised our own chickens. But I can remember Dad skinning squirrels, and we'd have squirrel and rice, squirrel dumplings, and things like that. And so the pressure, I know, was really hard on Dad. He wanted to provide, and he had to carry that stress every day. Of course, at 5 years old, I had no idea what he was going through. I just knew at times he was extremely mad. He was upset quite a bit. He took a lot of that out on me. I got more than my fair share of whippings, trust me. But this in particular, and this is how it ties in with the Campbell soup and the poor people. One summer afternoon, I was hungry. I can't remember if I'd ate anything that day at that time. And so I was scrounging around trying to find something to eat. And so I looked in the fridge. There was nothing in there that I could eat. All the cabinets were empty. There was nothing, quick to eat. Certainly, we never had anything like that. Other people had, quick things they could eat, even like Debbie cakes or sandwich meats and stuff. We never had that. We couldn't afford any of that. If we had food, it was something you had to actually, fix, and there was no microwaves back then. So it had to be cooked. And, but the cabinets were bare, except for one thing. It was a can of Campbell's tomato soup. And it was all we had. So I stared at that can for a long time looking at it. My stomach was growling. I was hungry. I wanted something to eat. And so eventually I decided I was going to open that soup and eat it. I couldn't cook it. I didn't know how to cook. I was 5. Had never cooked anything at that time. And so I grabbed the old can opener that we had, and it was that old kind where you would put it in there and you'd punch down on it. And I punched a hole in that can, and as soon as I did, I completely panicked. I knew that I was going to be in so much trouble if Dad found out that I had opened that can of soup. That's all we had. That's what we were going to have for supper. And I've done poked a hole in it. And so being panicked, I put that can of soup right back on the shelf, shut the door, and I went outside to play. Well, it came supper time. Evening rolled around, and so we go into the kitchen, and there sat Dad at the kitchen table. That can of soup was sitting in front of him. He had his hand on his head looking down like this. And when I walked in that kitchen, I'll never forget the look he had on his face. His head came up, he looked me in the eyes, and I mean, you might have thought it was the devil at the time. He looked at me and he said, "Boy, do you know how this hole got in this can?" And I didn't know what to say. I have no idea. I don't know how it got in there. Well, he dumped out that soup. He didn't know how long that hole had been in there. For all he knew, that soup was spoiled. And so he had to dump it out, and we didn't have anything else except water. And I'll never forget that when he asked me that, and I lied to him. And then eventually I finally came clean. I could see how mad he was. And so I said, "Dad, I poked a hole in that can. I was hungry, and so I was going to just open it up, and I was going to eat some of it." And that set him off. He got extremely upset, and I took off running. I knew that the next move was he was either going to have his belt off to whip me with it. He was going to grab a Hot Wheel track off the floor, a 2x4 if he could get his hands on it. He was coming after me. And so I ran as fast as I could out into the front yard. And at that time, there was a big mound of dirt or something in the front yard. And I remember climbing up on that mound of dirt, and Dad came after me with his belt in his hand. And he jumped up there and pulled me down, and he started just waylaying on me. I mean, he was letting me have it, buddy. And I was screaming, and he was yelling, and that belt was flying. And the next thing I know, my grandmother, Bessie, she lived down the road across the cow pasture from us. The land that our house was on belonged to my grandfather at first, and and my dad then lived on it there. So there was a cow pasture separating us from my grandparents' house. And she come running through that cow pasture and made it through the fence, and she run up there and she grabbed him, my dad, by the arm. And she said, "Carol," and that my dad's name was James Carroll Chesney, but everybody called him Carol. And she said, "Carol, you're going to kill him." She said, you're too angry to be doing this." And he finally stopped hitting me, and he put the belt down, and my grandmother took me by the hand and walked me back through the cow pasture to her house. And so I stayed there for, I don't know how long it was, a few hours. I believe up until the time Dad had to go and pick up Mom at Levi's, and I think that was around 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night. And I remember, the only thing I remember after that is being put to bed at our house. And so I don't remember if I actually ate that night. I'm sure my grandmother gave me something to eat. I can't recall all those details, but I sure remember everything that led up to all that. And so we never talked about that again. After that happened, Dad never mentioned it. I didn't mention it. Nobody ever mentioned that again. But that moment stayed with me, has stayed with me my entire life. There probably wasn't a day when I was a kid that went by that I didn't think about that, especially every time we went to have a meal. I would think about that time that I punched the holes in that can and Dad had to throw it out, and how upset it made him. But it did teach me a valuable lesson. It taught me, what it takes to feed a family and the pressure that it puts on a parent to provide for their kids, their family, and a lot of times not having anything. When Mary and I first got married, we didn't have anything. I didn't hardly make anything. I was making minimum wage at a nursing home, Hadn't been to college. After I got out of high school, we got married, and I didn't have an education. Just worked minimum wage jobs, and it wasn't until I finally went to college to get a degree that I was able to get a better paying job. And then I've been to several schools. I've gotten several degrees. I first got an associate's, then a bachelor's, then a master's, and now I have a doctorate degree. And each time I was able to move up in the places I've been. In my current job, I've been there 21 years, and I'm in a position that I'm a senior, employee there, and the Lord has been really good to me. And so I know what it's like to come from nothing and to be poor. And that can of soup, that executive was not wrong. It is a highly processed food for poor people, because that's all we could afford is just a few cents for a can of Campbell soup. I know today it's gotten even more expensive, and you have to get a store brand can of soup if that's all you can afford. But I was not offended by what he said. I agreed with him. Now, whether he needed to get fired or not, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. That language he used, of course, they recorded him in a private conversation with someone, and somebody leaked that recording. While that was not right for that to happen, it's also not right for him to have such a foul mouth. And for someone who's an executive at a company and don't believe in their products, then yeah, it was time for him to go. But like I said, it didn't offend me. I've came from that experience. And those cans like that, they've sat in the homes of poor people all over this country for many, many years. Sometimes that's the only thing standing between hunger and getting by is that can of Campbell's soup. But as bad as we had it, the Lord always provided for us. He's always there. I can't remember, like I said, what I ended up eating that night, but I know I didn't go to bed hungry because God always provided. Either whether it's through my grandmother or if Mom had somehow did some kind of miracle when she got home in the kitchen. But, the Bible tells us in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And that everything, it says, give thanks. I give thanks for that period in my life when we were desperately poor and all we had was a can of soup. I thank the Lord for that experience. I thank the Lord he watched over me and didn't let Dad kill me. He wouldn't have killed me. He might have brought me inches from the end of my life, but God sent an angel, my grandmother, across the field to save me. But I can look back on those hard times and be thankful that I had a loving family. I can look at my present time, be thankful to God that I have my own loving family. The Lord has blessed me beyond measure. I've got a nice warm home. It's not huge. It's not fancy, but we have our own home. And, the bank owns it right now, but in about 7 years, it'll be ours. We'll have it paid off. We got plenty to eat. You can tell by looking at me, I've not missed any meals. And so, sometimes the most meaningful moments, they don't come from a huge feast or having everything. It actually comes in the time that you're waiting for it. I think back to that can of soup and how small that seemed, but how big that moment really was. It made a lasting impact on me because now I see maybe it was God's grace in disguise. God doesn't always fill our cupboards, but he never lets us go hungry. And, our hearts are filled instead. He gives us what we need for today. He gives us our daily bread. And he teaches us to trust him that tomorrow will come with new mercy every day. So this Thanksgiving, if your table feels a little light, maybe you've had to open up a can of Campbell soup, but maybe that's all you could afford. Maybe your spirit feels heavy. just know this, that you are seen, you are loved by God, and he'll provide for his children. And listen, God's grace and his mercy is always there. He's always there. Well, I'm going to stop it right there before I start crying some more. And looking forward now, we're going to be eating here in 2 hours at 5 o'clock. It's 3:15, so a little less than 2 hours. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to see my oldest daughter, her husband, and the rest of the gang in there. And so I'm going to go in here and eat some more Chex Mix and just live it up a little bit before we eat our Thanksgiving meal. So I hope you're having a good holiday, and Lord willing, we'll see you very soon. This is Byron, and I'm out.